Construction Big Breakfast, where we give you a hearty serving of insider tips and business strategies to help fuel your day so you can thrive in the construction industry. Now, here are your hosts, Tip Top Tim Fitch and Brendan Morahan.
Hi, and welcome to this latest episode of the Construction Big Breakfast podcast with me, Tip Top Tim Fitch. And today I'm joined by my business colleague,
Brendan Morahan.
And our valued colleague,
Alaa Khattab.
So a little bit different today. We're going to, after we've had the customary question, which we start with, we're going to be talking to Alaa about some of his experiences before he joined Invennt and compare and contrast with what he's done since. But first of all, Alaa, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
This is a very good question. I started with the Welsh breakfast, I would say. It's cheese on toast. I think it's universal, but it's probably Welsh, and then with some lemon on toast as well, and normal tea, breakfast tea, English one. So it was pretty British one, I think.
Yeah, that sounds like that's acceptable. It's passed the quality test. Brendan?
No, I was back to my parrot porridge.
Porridge.
Raisins stirred in, sliced banana on top, washed down with a couple of cups of coffee. So very favourite start of the day for me, actually, the porridge. Gets me going during the winter months.
Yeah, well, today for me, I've just had a business breakfast with somebody. It's a non-training day, so a low-carb breakfast. It was a kipper. The only carb on it was lemon juice, but again, of course, washed down with a few cups of coffee. Sets you up for the day. Sets you up for the day. So, Alaa, just a quick bit of history about how we came across each other and what you were doing immediately before you joined Invennt.
Yeah, it's been almost 15 years, I guess, now since I graduated, and then I was basically involved in the construction sector back home for 5-6 years. That was just before the crisis.
Back home being where?
It was in Syria, actually, so doing some quantity surveying works, technical supporting office for construction projects. And then the crisis started, so I shifted to the humanitarian. But my background is construction, so I use this capacity, these skills, just to support the internally displaced people at the time, and all of the things around the war in the country. So I was involved with some charities, some international organizations in the country. Oxfam GB is one of them, and then MEDER, which is a Swiss organization. And then afterwards, I moved to the UK, and I thought it's good to link the construction side with the development side, so I did international development studies. That was in the University of Birmingham, then moved to London, and luckily I was hired by Invennt as a consultant, and that's how we're in here now.
I can remember when you came in for an interview and you told us, we were asking you about what your commercial experience had been. And you told us a story about a negotiation that you undertook in Syria. Perhaps you could share that, because this is what swung it for us. This is a totally unique, this is a good contrast really with what people might expect or have undertaken commercially in a negotiation in a construction sense in the UK or Canada or Ireland, and what you achieved and how you did it.
That's right. Negotiation is a part of any business, I would say. It's different when it comes to the commercial side of the business from if you're doing the humanitarian side of the business. The sort of negotiation that we're doing is critical, is crucial, and the consequences out of these negotiations is maybe saving lives or maybe helping others. So one of these stories, this is what I've shared in my interview. When I was involved with Oxfam GB in Syria, we had actually to do sort of negotiation between different parties during that humanitarian context. So one of the projects I remember was in Aleppo. It was one of the equipments we needed actually to move from Damascus or from wherever inside Aleppo city, and this to serve one of the water pumping station. Because there was lack of electricity cut off, and the city was like with electricity cut off for over 6 or 7 months. So you need this backup generator to get it inside Aleppo city. So you had to, and the city at the time, that was 2000, I recall 2015, if I'm rightly saying that, yeah. So you had to do negotiation between different parties, through like a local, I would say, agent or a local organization, and then it took us more than 6 months. And then afterwards we managed to put the generator in and the water flows and everyone was happy. So it was really that one of my very proud moments actually when we've seen the water.
Just to make sure I've understood, well, not so much maybe because I know the story, but our listeners and viewers. At the time, Aleppo was controlled by a different regime to the rest of Syria.
It was divided actually. It was divided into like 2 parties. They are divided. East Aleppo is one of the parties. The West Aleppo is the other party. But the project location was just at the front line. So the water pumping station that support all of Aleppo with water was just in the front line. So you have to serve that location, and prior to do all of this, you have to do all of these negotiations between.
So 2 of your stakeholders were physically in conflict.
Yes, and good point actually for the outcome of the negotiation with the charity that helped us to do this. We managed to do a ceasefire for like few days just to ensure that the convoy is smoothly running inside the city and to install the equipment, which was like I call it, this is water for peace, or like this project just stopped the war at that time, even for like just a few days, but was good enough to say that the humanitarian work at some point can maybe stop wars and bring parties together.
I mean, I've heard the story before, but even now I'm trying to stop my jaw from dropping because that, the stakes were very high, the outcome had a massive impact, and in fact, during the implementation, there was peace.
That's
had to
right.
be, otherwise you couldn't have done it.
The outcome actually was, which we were talking at the time about 1.2 million of civilians inside Aleppo city, and this project is serving all of them. When I did the report to the donor, which was Canadian donor at the time, we said, okay, our beneficiaries are all of the city, or we contributed to help. So the impact was very big, but the time that it took to get this project succeed was long time relatively with the construction projects that we used to do in here.
Yes, I mean, what lessons do you think our viewers and listeners could draw from this astounding negotiation, which was around a civil engineering project, wasn't it? It was about restoring clean water.
It's the patience actually, and you need to use also your technical skills, technical background to convince whoever you're sitting with. Like, these are the facts, this is the impact of the projects, this is the impact or the consequences if we didn't do the project. So all of these things that were at the table when we were discussing with people, and it's good to use whatever technical capacity that you have to serve your ethical impetus, which is helping others.
I think that's the important thing, isn't it? Sometimes people think that they always need to lead right from the very front, but it's about how do you make use of the protocols that exist, the culture that exists, to make sure that you work your way through those sorts of situations. Because you could go head first and get it terribly wrong and undermine everything that's gone before that. So how do you actually determine who are the right people to play the right card at the right time?
Actually, that's a very good point about not going. Sorry, I had a bit of cold over the past weekend, so my voice is not properly good. So that's right. It was not my pure decision at the time, because I was part of the technical team or program team. So there's like country management team who were like in the policies level and with the stakeholder level they were involved with. And we had these discussions, is it the right time to talk to these people, or is it the right time to use this card? So there was a lot of discussions around this, and the more communication that we did in the office at the time, the better result that we managed to do actually.
Yeah. When you what did the deal look like? Did you somebody sign a bit of paper, or was it just okay? How did the thing gel out for you? Was it how did the commitment come?
Actually, it was a sort of agreement and even like framework agreement with one of the water authorities, which was the Water Authority of Aleppo, that they need this project because the needs they are 1, 2, 3, and this project will serve this purpose. And then they send us a proposal or a request or whatever, and then we reviewed it and we've seen a value of doing this project. And then we came back to see what donor will serve us or will fund us actually, or will donate to us to do this project. And then after this, the rest was just practical steps just to get the project done, which is this negotiation, which is going to do some tests of the country, of the origin of the generator, and all of these technical steps. And then after this, it's just we use the telephones just to say, guys, we're ready now.
What does a ceasefire agreement look like?
It was verbal one.
Verbal.
Because
There's a lot of trust.
Yeah. There was some shooting here and there, but the convoy survived. But there was like a ceasefire, but not written. Like the situation was, we were not in a position, to be honest, to advocate to stop. We were just a small humanitarian body was trying to do his bit. So that was the situation actually. Yeah.
So how did you build up the confidence before that convoy moved towards Aleppo that you weren't going to get shelled or shot at?
There's one of the stories actually, I didn't usually share it. I was not allowed to travel, but as a Syrian citizen, I can travel wherever. So that was in my citizenship capacity. I traveled to Aleppo a few days before the project, just to see the situation, and then I went back. So I decided to do this because there is an ethical commitment just to see if the things are like really okay to get this convoy done. And then I came back and I told my team, not the management, that we're satisfied to do this. Of course, I delivered the message to the logistic team who are responsible to do the convoy, and this is how we did it. It was one of the risky moments, but I didn't regret this. And then later on, the management, they knew about this and they said, okay, that's not okay, but this is like a verbal warning, but don't do it again. I said, I'm not sure, but I will try. So, yeah.
Because try to compare and contrast that kind of risk management in terms of sort of health and safety with what it's like in a peaceful country like the UK. It's an unimaginable risk to manage.
And everything, you can apply all of the management tools to any other context, but the things with the humanitarian is totally different. Usually, like one of the examples I do, when we talk about any construction project in a built environment, we talk about time, cost, quality. With the humanitarian context, they are totally different. So we're talking in here, at the time it's so pressing element, so it comes first, and then why the quality comes the last. And there is some sort of compromising when it comes to the built environment projects. It's like this triangle is, the angles of the triangle, they are equal. But with the humanitarian, the time is really, you need to do the project yesterday. So different mentalities, and you have to adapt all of your skills with dealing with these elements just to be fit within that conditions. It's not easy. The risk management element is the most important one because you have to secure your safety, the safety of the staff before delivering the project. And I say again, that was not the right decision for me to travel, but I was really driven by, I mean the impetus was just to see the situation on the ground. Like, what is it the water situation look like in a city that got no electricity over like few months? So I had to leave the situation over for a few days. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do this again, if I'm involved in this business in the future, but sometimes you have to take the risk, and this is the same what we do with our business, for instance. Yeah.
What about the funding of these humanitarian issues? I was briefly involved in a global humanitarian business on a charity on an advisory board capacity, and what struck me was the competition for funding and how particularly the US market is so dominant in this, how you attract funds and how you keep on attracting funds and you get that flow of funds so that you can respond very, very quickly. So you're almost throwing money at something for the reason that you just said, because time is of the essence. How do you then always satisfy those funders that you should keep on receiving funds and maybe getting more funds in the future to keep on doing that great work?
I think usually if we're working with, like within the context that I was involved in, I was working with a big like global organization which was Oxfam GB. So they have their traditional funders. But your point is just spot on actually of the competition of the fund between the organizations. And this is the situation even here in the UK with the charities. I mean, it's the same as any other sector. You need the right people in the right position. You need people that are able to write bids, to write proposals, and you need to demonstrate the portfolio of the company in a way that these are the people who will be delivering this project. So we used to do all sorts of things. At the same time, just to be honest with the donors, because a lot of organizations within these contexts, donors, they are not able to access to most of these, and they're not willing to, obviously, to come and to see the situation. So they trust your reports. But they have their ears, they have their eyes, they know what's going on. So you have just to be transparent. And I think all the principles that we are implementing in the construction sectors are applied also to the humanitarian sector. Just be honest with them.
But what is the success criteria from your point of view and from theirs?
If the crisis, like we used to do some sort of appeal, for instance, within like group of organization. Like when we are together, like all of the organizations together, applying for fund, it's easier for DFID or for the Canadian aid or whatever, just to support us. When you do this like alone, you need to do more effort. Success rate will be higher if you're doing this within a consortium of organizations who are applying for this, which is not the case in the construction sector.
But what are the measures of it? How do you, after an event such as that, measure the success or otherwise of that?
Our internal success, you mean?
Well, if I'm a funder, you spent my money, you've done something, how do you satisfy me that I should keep on funding you? And how do you satisfy yourselves as an organisation that we've done well, you should keep on going and doing more?
Yeah, there is some sort of, what we call it, logical framework, which is the Bible of the humanitarian project. This is the deliveries, this is the outcomes, and these are the indicators. So usually what we use to demonstrate to the donors when we finish any project with them, this is the number of beneficiaries, the number of people we managed to support them. Let's say we promise the DFID donor to support 1 million beneficiary within this certain amount of time. So if we manage to do this, the DFID will be more confident to give us more fund. And this is alongside with other actually criteria, but mainly we use the indicators to say we managed to do the project within the time frame, within the same number of beneficiaries, within all of these challenges as well. So we use these logical framework indicators just to prove that, okay, we were successful doing this.
So let's move it on to the construction relationship now. I mean, you've referred to an exciting stroke scary time of carrying out some infrastructure works. But to me, what it highlights, what we've always said around here, is how important infrastructure is to society, developed or undeveloped. And we find the construction sector quite exciting anyway. But how do you compare and contrast humanitarian type construction with the more controlled construction that takes place in a developed country such as the UK?
Yeah, the impetus I think is different. Of course, the two sectors, they are serving good purposes. But in the humanitarian sector, you're driven by, I would say, saving lives. So your type of interventions is more about reconstructing things, or is about doing shelters, or converting or transforming existing schools, for instance, into shelters, just to help people to find shelter in the hard days. While in the built environment, more or less is driven by commercial purposes, which is very valid purpose as well. And I'm not sure how this is linked with the bigger picture of whatever we're doing in this sector.
I suppose that's what I was getting at, is how does it change the way you conduct construction in the two different environments? Because the product is arguably the same, the logistics clearly will be very different, the environment will be very different, but the actual process will be very similar in many areas. But it's really, what are the distinctions, the differences that I'd be particularly interested in?
I think it's about just to bring people to be aware of the bigger picture. So as long as you have everyone is looking at the utmost goal, which is, I would say, achieving 1 million beneficiaries in a year. So everyone will be working just to do this. While in the construction sector, the gap that I see in this sector is, there is a gap, or there is, I mean, the bigger picture is not clear for everyone. If you're doing a stadium, for instance, is it to improve the image of the UK if you're implementing the Olympia Stadium, for instance? So a lot of people who are working on the ground, actually, they are not linked with that bigger picture. But with the construction sector, like we used to have all of these meetings around, okay, these are the humanitarian principles, and you need to forget that you are an engineer here. You are a humanitarian worker / engineer. That was the difference.
Is that something that commercial business should copy, to make sure that people are more clear about why they come to work every morning? What the inputs is?
I think I rehearsed, like this. There is a certain gap that I noticed even back in the days when I involved in the construction sector in Syria. I was involved in a very big residential, projects and other sort of commercial projects. I was not able to see the bigger picture. Rather than, okay, let's get the project done, let's be successful, and let's improve the business.
That's really interesting, because we obviously do a lot of work on strategy with businesses, and that's always the hardest hurdle to overcome in explaining to boards why it's important to have that purpose clearly articulated. And you've given a very good example there of why it was essential for what you had to do in Aleppo.
Unfortunately, with a lot of businesses that we're seeing here in the construction sector, they have this social contribution element of their businesses, and they don't do more than this. And I think this is just because it's a mandatory sort of boxes they need to tick when they do it. I'm not attacking all of these businesses, but I'm saying it's just general observation.
But equally, every business is a target. They get bombarded with all sorts of charities, local, national, global. How do they make a choice as to which they should support and which they should let pass by?
I think it's not easy mission to just to appoint like a specific charity just to help. In the UK, as far as I know, there are 160,000 charity, and most of the charity they are under 500k annual revenue. So the competition is very hard, and the fake information and false information are so intense. I would say if for instance, if the company employees they are interested of helping refugees, for instance, let's focus on list of leading refugee charities, and we take it from there.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many ways that we can be involved in just to support these charities.
And you're involved in a particular refugee charity over here in the UK, which is quite interesting from what little I know of it. Very community-based, which has its added attraction of you actually drawing the local community together anyway. So there's benefit for the community. But I would have thought immense benefit for those families that come into the community. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
I think it's for both sides, for the community and for the families. The goal is just to bring refugee families from the countries of the camps to the UK through a community effort. But at the same time, it's mobilizing the community capacities together just to organize themselves and then to bring the family. Recently, I was involved, and I'm still involved with a local group in Bermondsey, in the southern side of London. So we are 14 of us now. We're trying just to raise the fund, to raise the awareness, and to bring the family as well.
So Alaa, when we went to an event at the Canadian Embassy a few weeks ago, you and I, and at which you won an award. Would you like to tell our viewers about that?
Yeah, I was surprised to get this award. I was proud, of course, at the same time. This was an event organized by Citizens UK, which is one of the leading charities in the country in terms of empowering the local communities. So the award that I got was the Champion of the Year for the Community Sponsorship Scheme. The scheme that meant to bring refugees to the country. So, it was more of recognition of sort of voluntary work I did with them over the past 3 years, which is going to local communities across all of the UK just to do the awareness about the scheme itself and about the plight of the Syria crisis as well. The competition was hard, so I was not expecting this award. My other colleague, I expected to Eva, who was competing with me, and I was totally happy to get this prize. But again, this will give me more, I think, energy just to continue doing the awareness.
Well, I've just wanted to, because I was there, I listened to all of the nominees and soaked up the whole thing. And there was a couple of amazing sort of coincidences and interesting things. So the first thing was you were nominated by a local group from Devon. In fact, it was from Ottery St Mary.
Some of the work I did was
down there, yeah. And I was introduced to your friend who was obviously the leading light down there. And of course they had this amazing case history of the family that had come over and settled in Ottery St Mary. For those that don't know, look up Ottery St Mary on YouTube, because it has a very, now it's nowadays, unbelievable tradition on bonfire night. I'll leave it at that, you check it out on YouTube. But I know Ottery St Mary because I've been there a long time ago. My brother lives down in Devon. So that was one interesting thing. It was amazing that you've been down there doing your thing. The other thing, of course, was that the charity that you've been working for in the UK is an import from Canada, where they... Tell us a little bit about that, because of course this is another parallel which I had no idea of, because we've got a big strong Canadian connection. It wasn't the first time I've been to the embassy for all sorts of reasons. So just tell us about that, how that charity came out of Canada.
That's right. Actually, the scheme itself is, or the concept of the scheme came from Canada, and we imported this here in the UK. We're trying to implement similar characteristics of that scheme. Basically, the scheme established in Canada, if I'm not wrong, was 40 years ago now. So this scheme is helping communities to bring refugees from all over the world to be resettled in Canada. So what happened in the UK, after the shocking images of Alaa Khattab, the Syrian boy who washed by the sea, so there was like an emotional response by a lot of charities in here, also by the UK government, just to establish this scheme. So it meant to help the Syrian families. So they were looking at like successful examples. They said, okay, let's bring the Canadian sort of scheme, because it's been a success. So they imported this and they started this. It's good to know that in the coming year the scheme will not be limited to the Syrian families. It's going to be open to any other maybe refugees all over the world, which is good. So the scheme it's a learning process for all of the volunteers within this scheme. But it's also good to say that good lessons are coming from Canada. We're taking these lessons.
Yes, and I have to say that that evening for me was a tremendous eye-opener. A, for the work that this charity was doing, but also the esteem in which you are held by that community was astounding. And of course it was another demonstration where we've learned from Canada, because of course R&D tax credits are a Canadian invention, which we 15 years after they were conceived, the UK government bought the UK as well. So both on the R&D front and the humanitarian front, we've imported stuff from Canada, which has now been very successful here. So on that positive note, the whole thing's been a positive, uplifting experience, I hope we all agree.
Exactly, yeah.
I'd just like to thank Alaa. If you want to follow Alaa on Twitter, it's at Alaa the Proud.
Yes.
We'll put that on the show notes. So goodbye from Alaa.
And it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from Tip Top Tip.
Invennt has a 100% success rate with R&D tax credits, bringing in over £77 million in qualified costs for businesses just like you. We offer a complimentary, confidential review of your business to see where you're leaving money on the table. Contact us at www.inventt.com to book a consultation today. Thanks for joining us this week on the Construction Big Breakfast. Make sure to visit our website, www.inventt.com, where you can subscribe to the Construction Big Breakfast on all platforms so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a positive rating. Or if you'd simply share it with a friend, that would help us out too. Be sure to tune in for our next episode.